Tonight on Dr. Phil Primetime, justice is served. It was a story that gripped the nation. The tragic murder of Rachel Morin, a 37-year-old mother of 5 from Maryland. Rachel's life was brutally taken while she was on a hike, and after a 10-month investigation, Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez, an illegal immigrant and criminal from El Salvador, was just convicted on all counts related to her death. Joining me with their reaction to this long-awaited verdict are Rachel's mother, Patty Morin, and the family's attorney, Randolph Rice. Patty, let me start with you. It's good to see you again. And once again, I'm so very sorry for the circumstance. I wish we were here talking about anything else, but at least this is a granule of better news. It's certainly not good news, but there is some degree of justice here. So I'm glad that we have this result instead of a different one.
Yes, I am too. So thankful for the justice system and the hard work of all the law enforcement, and just very grateful for the verdict.
Was there a point that you had any doubt that a guilty verdict would come back, and were you surprised that they deliberated for only an hour?
In the beginning of the trial, because the family didn't know all the details of the evidence, I was apprehensive. Was this really the murderer? Did they really have enough evidence? Like, those kinds of things went through my mind. But as the prosecutor, Allison Healy, presented the case, it was literally layer upon layer upon layer of information and evidence that made it impossible. You couldn't refute the fact that he was the murderer, that he was in Maryland, that his DNA was all over her body, his DNA was all over the crime scene. So in the end, I had no doubts that they had found the right person, and that the jury saw the evidence and they saw the same thing I did, that he truly was the murderer. And so I am very grateful to the jury for their conviction. And like you said, it doesn't bring Rachel back, but it does bring a year and a half, almost 2 years, to some kind of closure for our family.
I'm so glad to hear you say that and that you feel that way. Randolph, is this a clean record? Will they try and appeal this? And will this be a protected verdict?
Dr. Phil, that is a great question. And, every case, and typically when you're looking at a case where he's facing life without parole, I have no doubt that he'll find some reason to file an appeal. Will he be successful? That is yet to be seen in the appellate courts. But it seemed that the state did a very good job of presenting their evidence. They were very methodical. They started from the very beginning. They made sure each witness got every piece of evidence in. And the defense had every opportunity to cross-examine those witnesses. They did not do a lot of cross-examination. So I think the state had a very airtight case. I didn't see any issues that were appealable, but you never know. There's always one little one out there that they'll try to find.
Right. And can you tell us what all exactly he was convicted of, so people understand exactly what I know it's life without parole plus some other years. What all exactly was he convicted of?
Yes, sir. So he's convicted of first-degree murder, the premeditated murder of Rachel Morin, first-degree rape, which carries a life sentence, kidnapping, as well as a third-degree sex offense. Now, what the judge can do is she can give him life without parole. She can also run consecutive sentences, meaning one sentence after another, so that it ensures, while the life without parole will ensure he won't get out. But if she starts stacking those sentences, just in case that Maryland legislature decides to change something down the road, there'd be no chance of him getting out of prison.
Right. And he was here illegally. And I've heard some people and read some things on the internet. This guy is not going to be deported. He's got to serve his time here. It's not that he's going to get deported out of this country and then skate some other way. he has to do his time here in a U.S. prison for a U.S. crime, correct?
Correct. He's got to stay here. He's not going to CCOT like everybody's, has been seeing on the news. He'll be serving that sentence in a Maryland Department of Corrections, either on the eastern shore of Maryland or in the western mountains of Maryland.
And for anybody that doesn't know what happened here, you'd have to be living under a rock for the last couple of years, because Patty, you've done such a fabulous job in honoring Rachel and keeping this story out there in the spotlight, and we've tried to help in some small way in assisting in doing that. But so people know, on August 5th of 2023, Patty's daughter Rachel, 37 years old and a mother of 5, goes missing after leaving home for a hike on what's called the Ma and Pa Trail in Bel Air, Maryland. And she was reported missing later that day. Her car was found parked near the trail. So they started search efforts involving local authorities and community volunteers. And I don't want to get too graphic here and traumatize you by having to relive this, but her body was discovered in a wooded area near the trail. DNA was collected at the crime scene, and authorities announced that there was a DNA connection between the suspected killer and a man who had assaulted a 9-year-old girl and mother in LA during a home invasion on March 26th. So, I mean, this is this illegal immigrant that's in the country. He's all the way across the country doing a home invasion and assaulting a 9-year-old child. And video surveillance showed the suspect's side profile leaving the LA home. So all of this starts coming full circle. And the Morin family met Randolph Rice, by the way, who took this case pro bono, which means he hasn't made a dime or tried to make a dime from this whole thing, but has volunteered to monitor this. You say, well, there's prosecution. Why do you need monitoring? Well, trust me, if you've got a pro that is facilitating this, it makes a huge difference in the family being informed, knowing what's going on. And come September, investigators continue to gather evidence and conduct interviews. And on June 14th, they do identify this Martinez Hernandez, who's 23, unlawfully present, Salvadorian, through DNA gathered from clothes that his family gave to law enforcement officers and investigative genetic genealogy. So finally, he's arrested now in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So this guy's just running all over the country. Shouldn't even be here at all. And he's running all over the country. And so I think he was picked up in the Tulsa County Jail. Is that right, Randolph? They got him out of the Tulsa County Jail?
They actually arrested him in a bar in Tulsa, Oklahoma, within hours of
Oh, is that
finding out
right? That's right. They got him in a bar.
Yeah, they got him in a bar, and we learned during the trial that this was just hours after they'd gotten that DNA hit in Maryland from the Maryland State Police. The detectives worked so quickly, they were able to get a warrant. They pinged his phone, found it in Tulsa, called the Tulsa PD and said, we got a guy who's a murderer. We need you to go grab him. They immediately go over to the bar, they go in, and they grab him there, and they capture him.
Man, it is so good to hear that. Patty, what was it like sitting through this trial? Because I know you had to hear a lot of things, because this was a brutal, brutal crime. And as I say, I don't want to sensationalize this and traumatize you further, but what was it like having to sit through this trial? Your body is a system, and when it's running right, you feel focused, energized, in flow, but sometimes we struggle to find that flow state. Why? Because there's too much static in our system, brain fog, fatigue, and inflammation. The Echo Flask clears the static by infusing your water with molecular hydrogen, a natural science-backed gas that helps your body think sharper, recover faster, and run smoother. This is more than hydration. It's better focus, more energy, faster recovery, less internal stress, and longer-term benefits that keep you sharp. When your water works harder, your whole system does too. Find your flow state with the Echo Flask hydrogen water bottle and get an unlimited supply of hydrogen water at home and on the go. Visit echowater.com/Phil and use code Phil for 10% off. That's echowater.com/Phil. Enter code Phil to save 10%.
It was so very, very hard, very emotionally draining, because now we have all the puzzle pieces and the bits and pieces of information that we didn't know before. So this painted a very vivid picture of what happened to my daughter. And I do want to give a couple of details, only because I want people
Please.
I want people to realize how brutal, how gruesome, and how violent this attack was, because it's not like anything that we see in America. It is so horrible, and we have this happening all over the country. He dragged my daughter. Somehow he hit her on the back of the head or something. He dragged her 150 feet to hide her in a drain culvert. So you have 150 feet of blood gushing from her head as he's dragging her into this culvert to hide her. They showed pictures of the crime scene where you see her body outlined on a wall in blood, because the blood is gushing from her head as he's throwing her up against the side of the tunnel to rape her. And then they showed autopsy pictures where there is a 6-inch space in the back of her head that was shattered like you would crush an eggshell. She had hemorrhaging in 3/4 of the brain. She had 3/4 of her head, right, left, back, smashed in. Her face was broken. She had literally contusions, wounds, scrapes, bruises, literally all over her body. And you could see the marks where he strangled her. And they had shown autopsy pictures where he strangled her so hard, it went through all the muscles, all the way down as far as you could possibly go in a person's neck. It was all like blood in the muscle from it. So it was an extremely, very, very violent. He smashed her head against rocks at least 20 times. It was just a 6-inch cut across her forehead. It was so extremely very brutal. And to have to sit and see those pictures and to hear how he treated my daughter, and then to see him sitting in that courtroom with no remorse. I think he actually thought that he was going to get away with the crime. It was so heartbreaking, because as a mother, you want to protect your child. And you can't. We weren't there. And now to know the extent of the horror that she went through, it was just very, very hard. So that's part of the reason why I'm really very grateful in hindsight now, seeing how the detectives kept the integrity of the case by not sharing details, and how that they were able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, because of all the DNA and just the timeline and just everything, that he truly is the murderer. So I'm so grateful that this vicious person is no longer going to hurt another woman. And but I want Americans to know that there are more like him in our country, and we need to do everything we can to protect American citizens.
This is an animalistic attack. And,
Yes.
I know that Rachel is a mother of 5, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But as a mother, this is your daughter that
Yeah.
you sat in your lap as a child and played with and taken care of when she was sick, and nurtured and kept safe in your arms. What do you say to yourself when you see these horrific images of somebody doing this to your own daughter who is totally innocent, just out in nature, taking a walk? What do you say to yourself about that? Let's discuss preparedness, because we know emergencies happen when we least expect them, but instead of just taking it, we can prepare. Let's discuss Jace Case, one of your most important preparation tools. With Jace Case, you'll have emergency prescription medications on hand right when you need them. Think about it. Ever been caught off guard? Whether it's a sudden illness or a travel hiccup, the right medications can make all the difference. Jace Case is designed to take that worry off your plate, so when a minor health issue pops up, it doesn't turn into a major problem. Don't let unforeseen circumstances derail your plans or your peace of mind. Live with confidence. Take charge with Jace today. Visit jace.com and use code PHIL for a discount on your order and get emergency antibiotics on hand for the moment you need them. That's JASE.com, code PHIL, PHIL.
I don't know what to say. It's like, you hold your baby, you nurse your baby, you care for your baby. It's like she's a part of me. And to have somebody do such violence in such a like you said, such a savage and animalistic way, and to feel helpless that you can't do anything to protect or to save her. It is like a mother's worst nightmare. I can't even describe to you the heart-wrenching feeling. It's like when he tore my daughter apart, he tore my heart apart too. Like because that's how a mother's connected to her children. And to it's like some things you just disassociate because it's so painful and it's so gruesome. And how can you make sense of it? You can't.
Well, you can't, because you can't make sense of something that's so evil because you don't have the ability to go there. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have that evil part of your mind, your spirit, your brain, which is an everyday thing for someone like this. And Randolph, this is people think that too much is made of this maybe, but the simple fact is this person didn't even have a right or reason to even be in the United States of America. One simple fact, if this person isn't allowed in the country, Rachel is with her 5 children today. That's just that simple. Of course, an American citizen could have done this, but they didn't. It wasn't an American citizen. It was somebody that did not even have the right to be on American soil, but they did, and they came here. They had just gotten through molesting a 9-year-old child in LA and then comes out here. This is a hunter. This is a predator. What is it that people don't get about this? I don't understand that. What is it that people are not getting about this?
Yeah, and I think I just want to hit on a quick point you made is that we don't get this mindset, the way he thinks, because we're not this animalistic way of thinking and hurting people. So that's a great point that you make. And remember, this suspect is also wanted for the exact same crime in El Salvador. He did this to another woman, allegedly, before he left El Salvador, which would presumably be why he left. He knew that he was going to be in trouble because he just raped and murdered a woman there. So he flees to the United States. And you're right, Dr. Phil. This was a failed immigration policy under the Biden-Harris administration that they allowed this to happen. And if you look at today, under the Trump administration, how those numbers have gone down to just minute numbers trying to get across the border. Before we were having tens of thousands, and him being one of those. 3 times he tried to get across and stopped. And mind you, he never even got stopped and never got fingerprinted or taken any biological data of him. And then he comes across the 4th time in El Paso, Texas, and he goes on this crime spree in the United States. So you are exactly right. Preventable death Had he not been allowed to come into this country, Rachel Morin would be here today with Patty and her 5 children.
Yeah, it just doesn't have to, it didn't have to happen, and it did. And you're certainly using Rachel's life. And I'm not saying the lesson is worth the price, but you are using her life in this way and to make this point and drive it home. And I think y'all know I work with Tom Homan, the Borders Are a lot. This is clearly on his radar. We've talked about it before the trial started. I have a call in to him now to discuss the verdict and all, but this is what drives our Borders Are to do what he's doing to get these criminals off the street. And his philosophy is the worst first. Let's find just this kind of person and get them the hell out of this country so we don't have this over and over again. Patty, talk to me about the 5 kids at this point. How has this impacted them, and how do they feel about the verdict? Let's cut to the chase. Your savings could be in serious trouble. When Elon Musk is out here warning us to brace for temporary hardship, you might want to listen. I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. Are you going to sit back and hope for the best, or take control of your financial future? Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505. That's DRPHIL to 50505 today.
Well, we had 2 of Rachel's daughters testify in court. We had her 14-year-old and her 19-year-old because they were the last ones to have communication with her. And I can tell you that the 14-year-old, when we went to court, we were asked to really control our emotions so that the jury has an opportunity to hear the evidence without any prejudice one way or the other. So not to show emotion if you needed to leave the courtroom. And we wanted to have a fair trial for this person because we wanted the verdict to stick. So we wanted it to be a fair trial. So her youngest daughter, who was 14, that gave testimony, she was so heartbroken because she's the last one that spoke to her mom. She was trying so hard to compose herself on the stand, but couldn't. So you see her sitting there, holding back tears, trying to answer the questions without breaking out into a sob. And then after, when she was dismissed and she's walking out of the courtroom, she composed herself long enough to walk out of the courtroom. As soon as the back doors open for her to walk out, you just hear these heart-wrenching sobs of, I just had to relive the last few minutes I had with my mom. And she never came back. And, all those things are running through her mind. And she's still grieving. So this just brought up that pain and that reality all over again. And I believe the same for her oldest daughter, even though her oldest daughter was a little more composed. It's like that for all of her children. And I think because of their ages, this is going to be a long-term thing of, as they grow and mature and understand more and more of the details, they're going to revisit the grief and the loss. So their grieving is going to be over years, not, months. So it's been very hard for them.
I'm certain it will be. And the thing is, you cannot really get about the business of grieving and the work of grieving while you're in the warfare of justice. When you're fighting for justice, when you're trying to make sure that you're representing your lost loved one, you're in battle mode. You're fighting, you're being vigilant, and you can't really do the grief work that you need to do until that's done. And hopefully now that you have a measure of justice, you can give yourselves permission to, lower your vigilance and diligence on that front and give yourself permission to grieve. Give yourself permission to start spending some time with your feelings and your thoughts and your memories of Rachel and with Rachel, and the kids can actually take some proper time to grieve the loss. Do you feel like that's something that everyone can get to at this point?
I think so. I think depending on the individual, and how because everybody processes grief differently. And there are some hallmarks that are coming up. Rachel's birthday's in May, Mother's Day's in May, and then August will be 2 years, of the anniversary of the crime that happened. So I think all of us feel relieved because there is a guilty verdict. Like you could see it among the siblings, physically, their bodies like relaxed, like finally we did it, there's an end. But now over the last few days, you can also see everyone is kind of like gone to their corner, so to speak, to be with their emotions and their thoughts and to allow themselves to feel all those emotions that they kept locked up while the trial was going on and while the investigation was going on, because we were unsure if they were actually going to find someone. If they did, was it the right person? And if it was the right person, would there be a conviction? So now we can put all those questions to rest. And so there is a measure of like relief and relaxation, so to speak, to the body and to the emotions. But it will still take time. But I do believe I have a very strong family and a very close family. And so we support each other. So I think it is on the way.